Okay, so this topic is going to focus on the formation of waterfalls. If you wanted to follow along, this would be found in topic 10 of your SPs, box 3. Now in box 3 there's waterfalls and interlocking spurs because it's the upper course of the river. We're just going to be focusing on waterfalls. Now waterfalls might be found in paper 2 in the UK and physical landscape section. Generally they would be a 4-mark question. Now you would probably get one of two things. You might get explain the formation of a waterfall, you must use a diagram, in which case you must use a diagram, or explain the formation of a waterfall, you may use a diagram to help you. If it says you may use a diagram to help you, generally it's up to you whether you want to use one or not. We would suggest that you use a very simple diagram that I'm going to show you. Don't get artistic with it, just generally do that in a very quick manner. We don't want to take very long. So the question we're going to be looking at here, explain the formation of a waterfall. And it is 4 marks. And we're going to assume the question says you may use a diagram to help you. Now the diagram I'm going to draw for you is very simple and very quick and easy to draw. Very, very simple indeed. We add in our layers for our hard and our soft rock, and I also like to add in this bit to show where this section used to be. That is it for the diagram in theory. Now we just need to label it. So we have to add in our hard rock and our soft rock in here, because in all waterfalls you find the hard rock on top of the soft rock. We have to add in labels to show that this is the undercut, this is a plunge pool, and this the overhang. And we should also add in an arrow going this way to show the direction of the waterfall retreat. Once you have all of those in there, you're then ready to actually start looking at your answer. You would probably get at least 1 mark just for this diagram. You wouldn't get any more though because you haven't explained. Now the structure we're going to use for this is K, U, U, U. You make a point, you then explain how the fact that this hard and the soft rock together creates all of this. Now the way I like to do this is I like to give it numbers so I know how I'm talking about it. So I'm going to give this one 1 because the fact that the hard rock is on top of the soft rock is very important here. A 2, a 3, and a 4. Our K, U, U, U. Now the way you want to write a question like this, or answer a question like this, is you want to treat it almost as if you're writing a recipe. First, this happens. Next, this happens. As a result, this happens. You want to very much treat it like you are writing a process. So, my first point. Firstly, in a waterfall, hard rock is on top of soft. And that's enough to get you a mark in itself, although probably generally your examiner might give it to you there. Next, because again we are writing a process, so next, the soft rock is of course softer, therefore it is less resistant to forms of erosion, particularly hydraulic action and abrasion, and it's hydraulic action that would be happening here with the sheer force of the water plummeting down into this plunge pool here. So next, erosion, such as, and it's always a good idea to name the erosion, hydraulic action, erodes the less resistant soft rock. Then need to name the features of the waterfall that this causes. This forms the plunge pool and undercut. So that's this section done. Now we need to talk about this section, the fact that the overhang here, the hard rock, hasn't been eroded because it's more resistant. So it becomes unsupported. Because it's unsupported, it eventually becomes unstable and collapses. So we've done firstly, then next. So our next one's going to start with then. The hard rock overhang is unsupported. It becomes unstable and collapses. Now once it collapses, that hard rock then falls into the plunge pool. So if you wanted, you could add in some of those rocks, because that then could potentially cause erosion such as abrasion, if you wanted to talk about that, which then further erodes this plunge pool area. So this could cause further abrasion in the plunge pool. Those of you aiming for a level 6 or a 7 or higher, I would advise that you include that in your answer. So we only have one more point to go, and it's the fact that as that overhang collapses, the waterfall has moved backwards, and that process will just keep on repeating and repeating, and the waterfall will just retreat upstream. So that's what we need to add in there. I always remember that with a rhyme. The process repeats and the waterfall retreats. So finally, this is the last step in my instructions, the process repeats and the waterfall retreats. And that would be enough to get us our 4 marks. If it asked you about a gorge, explain the formation of a gorge, a steep-sided gorge, what you would have to do is you'd have to add on 1 point here to say this would leave behind a gorge. And that would get you the mark if the question had asked about gorges. Again, you could put that in there just to make sure. Okay, so once again, if you needed to revise that further, that's in topic 10 of your SP's box 3, and that's the formation of landforms in the upper course of the river.